welcome to John and the band Drop the Star. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your band there?
So my name's Johnny. Well, my friends call me Johnny anyway. And I started Drop the Star with a couple of other guys about, it was mid-COVID. I used to be in a band that was signed to Atlantic Records, and we took some time. I took some time off to raise a son and rebuild some old classic motorcycles. And then my wife kept asking me, "Hey, when are you gonna start singing again?" And so when COVID hit, we were working on a piece of property that we own, and I said, I probably could do something. And so me and a few guys, we got together and we started just writing songs, and that was really the goal. We were just gonna write songs. We weren't really looking to be like what most people consider a band. We just wanted to write great music. So.
Yeah, I saw in the information that you sent me, it said that your inspiration was like AC/DC and groups like that. How does that play out in your music?
Well, I would say that between AC/DC, I love the Bon Scott era of AC/DC, and it was just so raw and gritty, and it felt like rock and roll, kind of like a little bit threatening, like you wouldn't want to meet these guys in the dark alley someplace, and it just felt sort of like, I don't know, like the cool kids, right? And so I used to sing in my room and sing to AC/DC records, so I was influenced by Bon, and of course lots of other guys, but the main guy that I write music with, he was influenced very much by Slash. So that era between AC/DC, Bon Scott era, and Guns N' Roses, early Guns N' Roses would have been the stuff that really drives the band. A little bit of punk rock in there, and a little bit of pop music too. We love radio. I just love radio-friendly music. So.
Oh yeah, radio-friendly music is what gets the interest generated, right?
For sure.
So what is your favorite part about doing the music and about singing and performing? What's your favorite part about all that?
I would say that the portion where you're just beyond the improving of vocals, so you're starting to sketch out your lyrics, and the music is starting to find its balance between parts, and you're getting close. That's my very, very favorite part about music, because you feel like you're making something and you start to see it take shape. And once it takes shape and it starts to fly on its own, that's kind of when you realize, okay, either A, you've just spent a day kind of wanking off with your instruments and your thoughts and not really getting anything accomplished, or B, you really actually feel proud of something that you're doing and you keep pushing forward on those. So the writing for me has always been number one. It's the part that I love the most, is writing music.
So I kind of find that interesting. A lot of the people that I've talked to about the creative aspects of things is they kind of find this rhythm, and it just, whatever they're working on, whether it's art or music or being an author, writing a book, it just kind of takes on a life of its own, and that's when you really find what it's going to be and how it is. That's kind of what you were just describing there, and that's your favorite part of the process.
Yeah, it's the that part when you realize that you're on the right track and you feel like you're starting to actually make some headway on something that you're passionate about. I think it does speak volumes to whether you're doing art or music or even some types of like individual sports. You're kind of in that same mind. Like scuba diving, I was an underwater cinematographer for about 10 years, and it was, you really get into what you're doing, and there's a little bit of danger involved, and you could fall off of creating something by picking the wrong chord or the wrong shade of color. So it's easy to be thrown off or to get on that track. But that getting on the edge there and making your way through that creation period is, I definitely think, my favorite part of being in a band. Playing shows is cool, but it's kind of about your ego when you play shows. You know, a lot of people love to play shows. That's why they get in a band. They want to go out and play shows. But for me, I think it's great to have people's response and have it be positive. Don't take me wrong, because ultimately you're writing music and art or doing whatever for yourself, but you also would like to have somebody enjoy it, you know.
Well, yeah, that's ultimately what all the creative process is about. Is yeah, you do it because of the passion, because you love it, but you also want people to appreciate the work that you put in, appreciate the time that you put into it, and then really when they come to like a show or whatever the situation is, in your case, shows, like you were saying, performing, you want them to enjoy that, right? You want them to walk away and enjoy that too.
Yeah, of course, because they're paying to come into that bar usually or club, you know. And if I think that you, as a musician, you kind of have an obligation at that point to play something for them. The nicest compliment I think I ever got was in this band. And we were standing outside of the club after a show one night, and there was this kid. He was just standing against the wall, you know, one foot up against it, just kind of chilling. And he looked at me and nodded when the window was open, and he said to me, "You write music for people, don't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. I write music for people."
So what do you mean you write music for people? Can you explain that a little bit more?
Well, you know, there's a new song that we're working on right now. It's called "Something to Fight For," and it's just basically, you know, what we all fight for in life. You know, and it's random things. It's your bank account. It's a living wage. It's, you know, the a human right. It's, you know, all of these things are the things that we should be fighting for, and for the good, not for anything other than the good of it. You know. It's not about fighting for the sake of going outside and brawling in a you know, alley or something like that. That's not what I'm intending to fight for. However, dot dot dot.
It's still there, right?
Yeah.
So how does that relate then?
American Made.
Oh
Sorry,
yeah.
yeah, American Made is one of the singles that it's the dichotomy of human behavior currently in America. And so it's like a song about, if you like to look at this perspective, one side of the fence or the other side of the fence. And it's not trying to pick a side. It's trying to say that we're Americans and we should actually figure out how to be on the same page, not argue with each other over petty shit, if you will.
Yeah, I get that. So how does writing for people, where you want people to appreciate it and you want them to understand the message, and like your song, "Something to Fight For," right? Did I get that name right?
That is correct.
Okay. How does that fit in that human aspect with what you were talking about earlier, like the bands, the grungy rock bands and the hair bands, so the people like you didn't want to necessarily see them in the alleys? How do those two come together to make your sound and really entertain?
It's an intensity of intention. The way that the lyric and the music combine together to make people feel a certain way. One song is about falling in love with the, you know, your soulmate, if you will. You know, one song is about a boy not sure about whether he's a boy or a girl. One song is about how words actually can hurt people, like in the song "Bombs," which is what the song was about. It was, what are we at war now? What I was thinking about to one of my friends about something we had said, and I felt like, oh, are we at war now? And then that's when I realized like how words fall like bombs, and so that becomes, you know. It just should be relatable and intense, I think, when you write music for people, to answer the question.
Well, the passion needs to be reflected. That's one thing that I did get from the songs that you did send me, and I haven't been able to get through all of them yet. Unfortunately, I do a full-time job too.
I get it.
Right. But in those songs that you wrote, it's very much so the humanity of the situation, but that you're bringing this intensity to it, and you're talking about it in a way that hopefully people relate to, right?
Yes, absolutely. And not only that, but in a way that's kind of intense. It should be, because life isn't just something to take lightly all the time. Sometimes it gets intense, and that's why I like rock music, because it's got enough space in it to breathe. Where when you're telling this story about perspectives that you think most people are kind of experiencing with their life at this time, then you mix that with a beat that's hard enough to show aggression, but not so hard that all it is just screaming, and what I like to call the Cookie Monster effect for rock music, which has become the it's okay. I understand that for a song or two, but man, if I spent my whole life being that angry, I'd probably be dead already.
Hopefully not, right? But
So that's why I say, it can be that it's intense, and the conversation with the music should be intense, yet understandable, and with enough room to think about it and go, yeah, I get where you're coming from, or I don't. Which happens, because music is like ice cream, man. It's a flavor. Every week somebody loves strawberry, and then next week strawberries are out, and it's licorice flavored ice cream, and then that's out, and then the next week it's vanilla, and then it's vanilla for 6 months, and then nobody likes vanilla anymore, and that's worn itself out, so you move over to chocolate. It's kind of, that's how I think of music. After I've done this long enough to know what the flavor of the week happens to be. So I try not to just be the flavor of the week. I want to be something far better.
You want to be something that lasts, like vanilla. Vanilla is a flavor that almost everybody likes, right?
That's true. That is true. I guess you could compare us to vanilla.
I don't think your music's vanilla, but but so what do you think is so different from songwriting to every other sort of form of creativity? I did a little short video where I talked about poetry and how that's very similar to songwriting. How is poetry and songwriting and other forms of expression, how do you think they all relate or are different? That's kind of a big question.
Yeah, that's definitely a thinking question, man. I almost need you to ask it of me again, so I sort of compute it a little bit more, because it does sound like a very deep and interesting question. Can you ask it again of me?
Okay, well, let's start with this. How do you think songwriting is different from other forms of creativity, such as poetry and writing a full-on book, or an art piece? How do you think it's different?
Oh man, writing is a passion for all of the arts in the writing. Everything from the simplest love letters to the most deep and thoughtful poetry and lyrics. It's all sort of one kind of art. Painting, I would say, is another kind of art, but they're both done, if you will, with the hand, and some kind of thought passed on to another medium, be it paper or computer. And the trick is to say your thoughts as clearly and concisely as possible without using too many words to do it. I think that people get convoluted if like Nirvana was one of those kind of bands that wrote lyrics that you almost couldn't make sense from one line to the next. If you were just to read the lyrics and you had no context and you just got this piece of paper, I would read them and I go, oh, that's some very interesting art with words. And
It's like,
there's not
right?
it's not a clear story though, right? I mean, like there's not like boy meets girl, girl and boy go off into the sunset. It's a happy ending song. It's a lot about thinking, and that's where real great artists who are writers actually will shine because they know how to say things in a beautiful way that people can almost read between the lines, yet there is a story. There is some substance behind the from the first line to the last of whatever the piece that they're writing. Does that make sense?
It very much so does. Yeah, I get that because well, like you were talking earlier, when you get kind of in the edge, as you put it, when you're in the zone and you're just going and it's all coming together and you're like, oh, I get this. This works like this, and you can do this, and then we could play off of that riff, or we could do this vocal at this point and then pause for this, and we'll get this kind of effect. When you're in that zone and you're doing that, I very much so understand that being in that edge and that zone.
Yeah, it's I was my favorite songs. Like it's weird. You asked one question in here, and I think it was like, what is my favorite piece of art that I had created, or something like that. And then what was my least favorite? And it was interesting because it made me think. When why do you create? You asked why do you create art, and then you asked. What's your favorite piece of work? And I was like, yeah, I know I've done a lot of stuff that I'm proud of, but I think songs like Fallen and Beautiful Boy, which hasn't been released yet, it's coming out, it's the next single to drop on Spotify, are like two of my crown jewels because I wrote a lot of songs, but these songs were about things that were more personal. They were more about my own personal life, like things that I didn't write about in previous bands. Like rock bands for me, lyrics were things like fast cars, booze, wild time kind of lyrics. You know what I mean? Now I'm at an age where I want to write something that actually means something, like that you don't just feel like I just like said all the cliche words and terms just in order to make a rock song. And we're not like a hair band or a flashy band like that. We're just we dress classy and we try and play timeless music. It's just that simple. And the other question that you asked me was what my least favorite piece was, and it's a funny question because it comes back to what you were just asking me, and this is why I brought it up, and it's because it's such a loaded question in a way, and
Kind of like picking a favorite child.
but songs like Fast Way, for instance, I wasn't really a big fan of our song Fast Way. And, we're just guys, we took some old trials bikes out into the trails to make our video with it. It's a good, great video. You can find it on YouTube. But it's one of the songs that for some reason people gravitate to. That's the one they like. So sometimes you feel like I'm really happy or super proud of that piece of art, but yet it's the one that people actually go, oh, I love it. I mean, think of bands like I think it's Presidents of the United States. They wrote a song called Peaches. I'm not sure if you've heard it. Peaches for me, peaches in the country. The peaches come from a man. They come in a can, and it's like it's not like this monolithic song. It's just a great piece of time, right? So you've got 3 minutes to make this piece of art, which is another great thing about music is you have this little tiny sliver of time to create this thing from 1 minute, from 0 to minute 3:12 or whatever. And that's the great thing. You get to keep doing it over and again, like painting or writing books. It's great. In writing books, it's like chapters. You kind of hit zones in your life, and when you're writing as a writer, you're a book writer, author, you're writing like a chapter after a chapter after chapter that kind of twists and turns through these stories. And that's kind of how songs work. It's almost exactly the same for me, where I kind of feel like I'm creating chapters each session. And if you go back all the way like through my history of music, you're going to go into the wormhole and start getting back. You'll find that I did all kinds of things that were symbolic of the small windows of time in the chapters of the books that I was in at that time. So yeah, there's nothing to really love or hate so much because they kind of both go together. I mean, a great friend of mine told me one time, you never know happiness unless you know sadness. And I was like, man, that totally makes sense, because if you were never sad in your life, how would you know what happy was? Or how would you know what sad is, or vice versa, or, all of these emotions that you have to actually experience the counter of the emotion in order to appreciate one or the other. So, God, that was a long and winded answer, wasn't it?
No, but it got to the point, and it gave me another point to kind of split off on, if you will, because one of the things that I've noticed, and it's with a lot of the different creativities. I talked with a woodworker in particular in one of my previous interviews, and he said one of the things that was hardest for him is he would go out and he would have this table or whatever, and he would have cracked it or done a mistake, like had extra globs of glue that dried in places or something, and he would be like, "Oh, I'm sorry about that. I'll clean that up," and all that. But the people liked it, and what he realized is he just needed to shut his mouth and just let people enjoy the piece, right?
Yeah,
just
that is absolutely true.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's
So
why when you do this, you do it for people, right? I mean, that's if you're writing something that you are going to share, it's for the people you share it with.
Yeah.
And for me, it's love, man. I have I'm very, very passionate about music, and I've loved it for all my life. And it's been the one thing, that you can always count on to swing a mood.
So what got you into music then? And some of your other bandmates, what got them into music?
Well, I'll tell you, it's funny. When I was a kid, I must have been 17 and a half or 18 years old. I think I was just graduating high school, and I used to have this little guitar amplifier, and I just plug a microphone into it, and I'd be belting to rock records, Bad Company, and just that sort of rock during that time. Faces, Rod Stewart, Rolling Stones, whatever, and AC/DC, of course. And all of a sudden, this dude comes and he just knocks on my window, and I open up the curtain. He goes, "Hey, you want to come and sing for my band?" And I was like, I'd never been in a band before, so I hadn't even thought about being in a band. I was just singing to myself in my room. So I went and played with him, and that just was a can of worms that got opened up, and I realized I had something in me that I needed to get out, and so I did it. I've done it for a lot of years now. When people say I've done this my whole life, they're like, you're like 22 years old. But I mean, your whole life. What's 22 years of your whole life? Maybe 5 of it.
Yeah, it's a very small percentage in hindsight. That's really interesting. Somebody just shows up at your door and they're like, "Up, you're now our singer." That's just how this is gonna go.
Yeah, and I had no idea. I hadn't thought about being a singer for a band or any of that sort of thing. And then you make friends in the industry. And I came up in Seattle during the whole Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, all those guys. We were all friends. We all played in the same practice rooms. We all hung out together. We all went to the same clubs. We all had, something going on, and God, I'll never forget it. We were playing this band, Bathtub Gin was the name of the band that I was in, and we were playing at this club, and Madonna had just started Maverick, and she came in, she wanted to sign us. It was during the signing frenzy, and the guy, the A&R kid, introduced himself to my guitar player, and my guitar player was like, "Madonna's label? Fuck that! I ain't signing with Madonna's label. It's the last label on the earth." And I was like, "Okay, whatever." And the band that was playing with us that night was Candlebox. So if you know who Candlebox is, then you know the rest of that story. That was who Madonna signed that night. So that moved on. And then, so a few years later, I put together another band called New American Shame. And we did the same thing, kind of just rock songs. They were all rock songs. These have all kind of just been rock songs, influenced by rock and roll. And New American Shame was a hard rock band. We went on tour with like The Cult, We went on tour with like Megadeth and Kid Rock and Stained, and like, I mean, it just goes on and on. We played a bunch of festivals, and we went to Japan on tour, and it was a great experience. But there's one guy in the band who was on what he called, quote unquote, fun strike. And so when you're just trying to be hanging out, have a good time with your friends, and enjoy life, and there's one guy who doesn't want to have fun at all, it can be a dark cloud. So that band, of course, as all bands do at some point, ended up going down the breakup road. And at this point, now this band is just a bunch of guys that we know that we're never going to be big rock stars. We're just going to write music, and if people enjoy it, that's great. You know, I mean, we're not even fooling ourselves with dreams of grandeur. Let's just say for rock and roll lifestyle. We're older gentlemen, and we play music because we love it, and we're still young enough to do it. And most of us, all of us, still have our hair, so you're halfway there.
That works.
No drug addicts in the band. You know, it's not a bad thing.
I've heard that's kind of death to a lot of rock bands.
I'd say everyone in my career.
There you go. Well, that's good to hear that you're just a group of guys just looking to have a good time and enjoy life, and just have a good time with making music that people resonate with. So,
yeah,
how did you come up with the name? I got to ask, how did you come up with the name Drop the Star, and where did that come from?
So there are two thoughts behind this name. It was conceived at one time, and the thought within the room when the name was first talked about. One was to lose your attitude.
Okay.
Drop that whole star bit, right? You know, fuck right off. You're just a normal human being. Don't give me no bullshit. You're not better than anybody else. Just get rid of that attitude. And the other was kind of inside. You're the only guy I've ever told this, but
you never know when you get working on a project, and especially like a passion project, or you have something that you want to say through your art. Bands are notoriously difficult because you have not just one perspective feeding on it, right? Whereas, like, if I'm writing a book, I don't have to worry about anybody else's opinion about that book until it goes to edit and publish, right?
Yeah.
And then, whereas you're out practicing a new song or rehearsing your new song and trying to get all the like little things that probably people don't even think about in an ordinary performance figured out, and then somebody's coming in and saying, hey, maybe you should sing that a little bit differently, a little bit higher, lower, don't emphasize that note as much, you know. And then you're like, hey, who's the lead singer, you know, who's the person that's actually singing here?
Well,
I get that.
Absolutely true, and it is true about what you say. When you get passionate about something, if you feel like, oh, whatever, I don't really care, you probably aren't really giving 100% of your passion to whatever it is you're doing. I mean, you can't just mail it in, no matter what. In life, in art, you can't mail it in, or it just will be mediocre at best. There's a million mail it ins. But there are very few that are memorable, you know, and appreciated over time. And you know, music is like, you know, it's interesting because I think that it's wasted on the youth in a certain sense, because you are just a kid banging on an instrument, all filled with angst, up there rocking and jamming, making your racket, and as you get older, you start to actually learn to play your instrument a little bit more, and you start to have more intent with the direction that you're taking your instrument. And whether it's your vocal instrument or your drums. I mean, your drums are very much as important as a singer, and I'll be the first singer to ever tell you that the drummer is the most important player in your band. So when you get in the room, the guitar player has a saying. It goes something like, "You're not going to get a group of guys with 10 gray hairs on each one of their heads that's not going to argue from time to time," because you get older, but you start to refine yourself. You're not just bang away. You kind of take your approach a little differently, and I think it doesn't mean that it's any more or less energetic. It just means that it's more focused, maybe. And the greater you become at your art, the greater you can focus on that. And then for each individual within that, they have their own perspective and their own flavor that they want to bring to that bowl of ice cream again, if you will, right? And so when you just want to make sure that God, I lost my train of thought there. That's probably the adult fruit chew kicking in.
It's all good, but I definitely agree because like I've heard covers of various different songs that I've loved all in my life, right? And sometimes the covers just aren't the same. Sometimes they're better, but it's usually when they're better, the covers are better. It's usually they bring their own unique personality and they change the song just enough that it's like, yeah, I still like that song, but you know what? This version is pretty darn good too. And it's probably not something the band didn't try or think of, but they were like, no, we want to go this way. We don't want to go that way. We want to go this way. And they agreed on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. We have this song called Goodbye, Your Goodbye. And we haven't released it yet. But it's been recorded, and we have like 3 versions of it. And the weirdest thing is, it started off as an acoustic song with some lap steel, okay? So it almost had a country Rolling Stones vibe to it, right? Little cool backbeat on it. And then we decided, what would we sound like if we were a 5-piece band playing this? And we were playing it in 3/4 time. And then we said, what if we were just a 5-piece band on stage instead of this big production that we put into this thing? We had violins and cellos and all these stringed instruments playing. And so it was this beautiful orchestra going on. And then we stripped it down to its lowest common denominator, which was just the acoustic version of that. And then we went from 3/4 to 4/4 and played the song and gave it a down-picking punk rock sort of approach to it. And it completely changed the song, but it reminds me exactly of what you were just saying when you try all these angles on this song, because we knew we had something with the melody. So the melody was already there, but then we just had to kind of build the vibe that was happening behind these words and this melody, right? So is it aggressive? Are we saying goodbye aggressively, or are we saying goodbye slightly melancholy or sad about it, so it's, it could have worked either way. But the great thing about it is that as artists, you want to give all the players in your band, equal weight, right? So that everybody knows they're important.
Well, and they are important, and that's one of the things that I've seen with some of the most successful bands is, one, they're all really good friends. They all get along, and it seems like you guys have that. And then 2, it's they all realize that their individual role is helping to make the band better. An orchestra doesn't play well if there's that one violinist who's like, I'm going to be the star, and they're just out there doing their own thing. Then the piece, whatever the piece is, just doesn't come out as good. So I think that's one of the issues that a lot of bands run into is they get the egos, like you were saying, drop the star, right?
Yeah. Lose that ego, because you know what? At the end, we're all human beings, and we just want to all be treated with respect. We all want to feel love. We all don't want to be hurt. We all want to feel good about our experience in life. I mean, ultimately, I think if we can kind of share our joy and your joy, it works together. It's much more palatable and lovable, and it's much more intense when you're equally receptive. You know, like I love you as much as you love me. It both feels good. It feels good to be loved, and it feels good to love. So, you know, those kinds of things are what I really want to focus on in my life. And, you know, these last days of my life, I don't know how much time I have left in this life. Could be 30 years, could be tomorrow. You know, you just never know. So, I think that I did it again.
You lost that train of thought. Okay.
I think you know where I was going, though.
That's all good. I get your point. Now, walk me through the process from initial idea that you guys get. You have an initial idea. One of you brings it to the group, or you all kind of have the simultaneous idea together. What do you do from there to all the way to a performance of that song or a recorded song, a single? How does that process usually go, as summarized as you can make it?
Okay. Typically, I'll put together some chords, and then I feel that those chords have a voice. That voice is the words. And then once you have your chord patterns and your words, then you start working on parts. And then once you have parts established, then you start to bring in the intensity of what you're going to do as far as where this song going to go, right?
Okay.
And then you use how you go about the beginning to the end of writing songs. You know, so it starts out with some chords and a melody essentially, and then you just kind of construct from there. So it's all built around the melodies, vocal melody.
Okay. So you don't start like writing the words first of the song in every case.
I've been writing one-liners for many, many years. Okay, so what I do is I'm inspired by something, and I create one-liners. They can be simple things like roll the bones. You know, you've heard that term, that saying before, probably, right?
Yeah.
So, but I'll be inspired by something, and I'll end up just writing single lines down. And then what I'll end up doing is one line may influence me for a topic, where I can use it as a topic. Okay. And then I can recycle that over and over, if you will, for a chorus part. Okay. And then I may have some other one-liners within my thing. And these are all one-liners that, like, literally, they can sit next to each other. And if I just read from line 1 to line 2000, you would understand that all the lines go in order. And it sounds like lyrics. But essentially, you start with an idea or a concept about an emotion, really. I mean, you have this feeling about something you're passionate about, and then you use your words, and then you just try and find a meaningful way to choose the right notes to carry that story.
Okay. And then it all comes together, and you do your final, your recording or your performance, and you've got your individual pieces. Everybody knows what they need to do. Yeah. I'm sure you don't have any secondary issues, right?
Well, we built. One of the bass player owns a full studio that we use for a drum room, and our typical practice place. And the main guitar player that I work with mostly, Ty, he lives pretty close to me, and he's got a home studio, and he also has a room that has a drum room and a studio in it. So we're talking about 3 studios that we constantly can bounce around from. Plus, each one of the other guys has the ability to take the stems, which are the individual tracks of each instrument and their backup tracks, and then they can play their parts and add their parts at their own homes. And then we start building the concept of an idea, passing that around a little bit. And then when we get to the practice room, we sort of get a different vibe, maybe with all of us together, and we'll find like a hook, a guitar hook, or some kind of vocal hook that we choose to use to go fishing for human ears.
Okay, that's interesting. How it all kind of comes together. That's kind of the behind the scenes that a lot of people don't realize is how does this actually get put together. And I know I've thought about it, but I've never really kind of come to this is how it should work, sort of thing. Does that make sense?
It's just as simple, like, you know, a guy sitting with an acoustic guitar and you find some chords, because if you can pound away on your instrument in a bunch of down picks, right? But then you're still gonna change chords. So even if I pick these three chords and I create this melody within these three chords, you can pick it at 100 miles an hour, or you can strum it wide open. You can build a riff that lasts from each measure to each measure. You know, that's really how each one of these gets built, especially like the final guitar work. So if you go and you listen to something like Bombs, you'll really hear some great guitar work in Bombs. Like, well, there's great guitar work in everything. There's great guitar work in Serial Thriller, which is one of the radio songs that we've been getting a lot of attention from locally on. Then American Made is one of those songs where people aren't quite sure. They're like, "Ooh, I don't know, that's kind of touchy, you know, that's touchy. Why you say that? Why you say that?" I didn't. All I said was what I saw. I looked out, and this is what I saw. That's what I saw as what America was making. So I captured that minute. Like earlier, we talked about how important it is for a good songwriter to just tap into 3 minutes of something real, right? So because that's how you make a great piece of art, from 000 to minute 3:12, right? Because that's like the standard length, if you will, of time for art in music, in the music and in radio and in any kind of popular sort of music. That's just if you work within those parameters of time and build your structure there, that's you're working in the zone where we can play it on the radio. We can we can use it for a background part, this part for a movie, and this part for something else, someone else's video, on YouTube, and then pretty soon that's how your song becomes viral. And hopefully, if you're lucky, you write something that people appreciate and they want to use with their stuff. They want to do duets with you, and you see a lot of this on TikTok and stuff where they. You get one artist playing their song, and they'll stop and they'll leave a spot for someone else to come in and do something that's different than the original, And I really just appreciate what's the right way to say this? Art that is spontaneous.
Mm-hmm.
That feels spontaneous, right? Like you're not quite sure if it's going to go one way or the other. And again, this comes back to when you're on that edge. There's spontaneity that's going on at that moment where you're realizing that you're sparking. It's sparking. You might catch fire right here, and that's where it starts to get a little dangerous. And it feels like, okay, we're doing exactly what we're supposed to do, which is write songs that drive an emotion, that stand for something that all people in general understand in life, that you get to go through all of these emotions and feelings and everything that you get to experience in your life. And so that's what you want to kind of focus on, each one of those little 3-minute windows about all these different things that we're going to go through together in life, right?
Yeah. And just those shared experiences, and sometimes art can touch you in that way that you don't even realize that shared experience, particularly with music. when somebody hears something that just touches them, then they realize they're not the only person that's going through something like that.
And yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. And probably the most important currency of music is that it's when you touch somebody. I can tell you that the greatest honor that any singer will ever get is when the crowd sings with them. There will be no higher compliment.
That's awesome. Have you had this moment? Have you had that moment where the band or the whole audience joined in?
I have had the front few in the front enough to make make me happy. So I mean, that's a lot to ask for.
That's hey, you start at that front row and you just keep moving back, right?
if it works.
Right. Okay, so I like to finish these up with that lightning round section that you saw. These are just quick questions. Just get them in your head. Just show a little bit of your personality and help people kind of see you a little bit differently. Okay.
All right.
You ready?
Yeah.
All right. So, what's your favorite food?
Japanese.
Japanese. Now I'm going to twist these a little bit. What's the band's favorite food?
Tequila.
Okay, that works. What's your least favorite food and the band's least favorite food?
Junk food, and the band's least favorite food is, they come around. I'm a plant-based diet guy, so they've come around. It's the vegetables, but I think they prefer salami. But so probably vegetables for the guys.
Okay. Okay, what's your favorite color?
Seafoam green and navy blue, to be honest with you. I know that's kind of weird, but yeah, I like that color.
Your favorite? I'm going to guess the band's is probably the one that you put on your star logo.
Is that the color?
It's a blue and a red, if I'm remembering the logo correctly. And there's like a black backdrop. So
you know what? There's been so many designs done. I'm not sure which one you're talking about. Can you share it with me?
That's not first. What's your least favorite color?
Burnt umber. How about that?
I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yes, you will.
Maybe I'll put it in a video and we'll be like burnt umber just for references right here. All right. What's your favorite thing to wear on a cold day?
Oh man.
Oh, you knew these were coming.
Probably like a flannel underneath of a puffy jacket with some thick socks.
Okay. Nice. It's layers, thick layers. Got it.
Yeah, it's all about layers. That's right.
What is something you've always wanted?
Oh man, just to feel loved and appreciated.
Well, your wife was knocking on the door, right?
Yeah, that's because she was cold. It was cold and she was raining. It was raining and she was cold.
See, loved and appreciated. She wants you to come in and warm her up.
Yeah.
Favorite thing that you own?
Oh man, Priscilla.
Priscilla? What's Priscilla?
Priscilla is my 2005 Harley Davidson Softail.
Ooh. One day I hope to get a big boy bike. Right now I'm just putting around on a 150cc scooter, but I'll graduate to a bigger bike.
Well, when we hook up, I will at least let you ride one of the dirt bikes. Okay.
All right, we're gonna have to make that happen.
Yeah, we've got a little barn outside that me and my son have been kind of farting around with motorcycles since he was a young kid. He races motocross, so.
Oh, he's probably way better than I am. Like I said,
both of us believe it.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So if you could have one superpower, what would it be and why?
I would like the power of invoking intoxication. That way I could make anybody like having a difficult time, maybe just feel a little better, you know, be like a little ray of sunlight peeking through the trees or something for someone in a time of need. You know what I mean?
Okay, that's awesome. That's a really interesting one. I haven't heard that one before.
How many times have you felt intoxicated in your life without the help of any substance?
Probably a very few amount of time, sadly.
Exactly. No, that's okay because it's a rare feeling.
Yeah.
It's probably the rarest feeling you'll ever have in your life. And it'll happen when you're standing on the shore and you're just looking at the sun going down and you're happy to be alive and you're in the right place, the right time. And as the sun goes down, you just feel like, yeah, after today, it just doesn't matter. Today was just, this moment was just perfect. And that's that feeling of being able to be intoxicated without having to have a substance, right? So if you could have the power of invoking intoxication, you would be a superhuman.
Yeah. I can't see how you could use that as a band, as a lead singer in a band, right?
Yeah, that's true. You know, the crowd usually has already helped themselves and kind of become intoxicated on their own, if you will. We went and saw him and we were wasted already, and then we threw up and passed out on the floor, and it was horrible. That guy is way too intoxicating.
That might be a different type of All right.
I hope you find some way to make that interesting, because good luck, you're a writer. I mean, I'm expecting you to do well, okay?
We'll see how that goes on the editing floor. But
Right.
Johnny, I really want to thank you for taking the time today to sit down with me. And yeah, so you get last word. Go ahead and plug where they can find your music and maybe where you're touring to.
All right, so we just got one local show coming up here, but that's in Seattle, so probably not something for you to be concerned with. Let's see, DROPtheSTAR.com. You'll find our website. It's where we actually sell our music. Where the other sites just give it away for free, or I think Apple, you might pay for it there. But it's on Spotify. We're dropping singles right now on Spotify. The sort of the last of this group of recordings, and now we're working on the second group of recordings. So something to fight for will be coming from that. New music coming, always new music coming, and let's see. You can find us like on Facebook and Instagram. Just look for DROPtheSTAR.com, and all the links are there inside that as well. So,
all right. Well, thank you again.